I loved Dinosaur Jr. To me, they were like the perfect band because the music had all the hooks, but it also had like these sort of really loud, noisy, kind of dissonant parts that were just, you know, and they were like concise sort of rock songs. And I remember going, I don't know whether it was the first time we saw them, but I remember going to Folk City after we'd first met them. Maybe we were going to interview him, or Thurston was going to interview him for his fanzine or something, or Forced Exposure. But I remember Che was just amazing because he was practically lying down on the floor the whole time playing his leads. And I just thought that was just the cool, I'd never seen a cooler guitar, you know, a more casual sort of cool guitar player. And then later we found out that he, you know, had migraines and he'd taken all this stuff or something for his migraine.
It was the first Fire Hose tour. It was with Sonic Youth.
Yeah.
And we came and played Amherst, 1986, fall. And Sonic Youth, Dinosaur, Fire Hose. So that's the first time I played with them. Incredible band. I knew of them before though because D. Boone had the record. He had a weird test pressing of the first album, Homestead. And he played it for me. He goes, yeah, this is neat. This is like East Coast Meat Puppets. So we really like the Meat Puppets. They're friends of ours. And they seemed a lot younger, the Dinosaur folks. Like really young. Maybe they were teenagers still. Well, he was into all kinds of music. It was pretty amazing, all his wideness, wide breadth of from birthday party, you know, to hardcore, to Stooges.
Seemed kind of novel at the time, like the music that they were sort of making reference to in their music was not this like psychedelic music that was kind of popular in those crowds. It wasn't the sort of folky, jangly stuff. It wasn't pop music. It seemed like it was the kind of like bummer hard rock that had developed out of things that were sort of like the triumphant hard rock of the MC5 and the Stooges and Grand Funk. There was a kind of a bummer hard rock that developed out of that had things like, I guess, Black Sabbath and Blue Cheer and the more depressing Crazy Horse records and stuff like that. It was an alternate take on a similar sound.
I mean, to me, they were the first, that was emo core, Dinosaur Jr. Even, you know, that was even before the second generation hardcore bands.
It was at the Powerhouse in '88.
You were before then.
I know, but they're making great records and we were making shit records, so that's the difference. But yeah, I think Lou heard of us.
When did their first
Lou had records of ours, but I don't think Jay knew us.
When was the first Dinosaur Jr.?
Well, the first, like the great record, like You're Living All Over, came out in '87. And
it actually made me realize how much maybe they'd influenced Nirvana too. I mean, people say these things, you know, like, blah, blah, blah. But, or they say the Pixies influenced Nirvana, but then I really thought, Dinosaur is really, you know, because Dinosaur had this other dissonant quality they would go off into that Kurt really, really liked.
I was a big fan of them. I don't know when I first heard Dinosaur Jr., but the first time I heard them live, they were playing with My Bloody Valentine, and it was one of the best shows. And I always liked that the drums were flat, you know, were on the stage level. They weren't up on a platform. And I thought that was like I thought, wow, that's a really great choice that they do that. And And then Jay said, well, no, Murph just doesn't like being up on the platform because he thinks he's going to fall over.
It seems like in rock music, that's the only time, I've always been curious about male bonding, and it seems like playing rock music, that's where men or boys communicate with each other. But they don't clearly communicate, and Dinosaur Jr. was really sort of a classic example of not communicating, but communicating, or sort of being close to each other, but not touching.
Lou and Murph, the rhythm section is just so, it's so extremely kind of powerful and streamlined, do you know what I mean? It's just like, and Jay on top of that, Jay Mascis in any situation is great, but with Lou and Murph behind him, it's just insanely, it's just, this blows away all the other reunion bands. I won't say who, but do you know what I mean?
So Dinosaur played, and we went, and I remember when they started, they played whatever song it was, either a new one from the second album or something from the first album, but I think it might have been something new. And they just were playing this song, and it was really slow and languid and kind of soft, and Jay was just kind of like drawling and singing. And I remember standing here with Kim thinking, like, this is kind of cool, it sounds like the Grateful Dead or something, it's like whatever, it's just like kind of odd. And in the audience, you could tell they were kind of people who like either worked at New York Rocker or read the New York Rocker. It was very sort of just kind of like downtown, like kind of New York Rocker audience. And they're just sitting there, and nobody knew anything about this band. I think Kim and I maybe knew more than anybody in that entire room, just because of our connection with Gerard. And then about 5 minutes into the song of them just sort of playing this kind of plaintive, beautiful song, Jay hit the pedal, and it was like Motorhead times 10. I mean, it was insane, like how monolithic and blasting it was as a lead guitar thing. And he played for about a solid minute of this like screaming, killer, slashing lead guitar thing. And then stopped and went back into the soft part of the song. And I knew right then that this was going to be something that was going to be legendary. And it was. I mean, and the vibe in the room was like people were just like completely stunned, because it wasn't gratuitous. It wasn't just sort of like, okay, we're just going to blow your head off with noise. It blew your head off with noise, but it was also like guitar playing as if you're watching Hendrix or something. It was like, oh my God, this guy is totally ripping. And so that was a total mind blow for us. And it continued in like that throughout the gig. Like just they were doing that kind of like, the normal sounding rock band into like the most abnormal, like over the top lead guitar destruction stuff.
Yeah, they were so young. They were touring in the station wagon, and I don't know, they were just like, Jay was traveling with one of those big Samsonite suitcases or something that nobody took on tour.
We were driving down the highway, and they had taken the Bibles from the hotel, and they were ripping the pages out of the Bibles and throwing them out the window, and they were in front of us, and they were hitting our van, and at one point I think they threw a whole Bible out or something, and I thought, like, this is not going to be good. And while they were doing it, they shifted over into the next lane, which was an oncoming traffic, and I think we did something where we blew our horn or something, and they realized they were in the wrong lane, and they switched back right before getting completely dusted.
I mean, it's like any relationship or family. It's really like a psychotic family. Like, you do things for a reason. You don't know why you do them. Certain rituals or habits, or there's a certain psychotic state that is a band.
Lou was playing feedback. He was sort of sitting on his amp, just sort of touching his bass strings, and it was really loud. And it was like, well, Jay was playing the song, singing the song, strumming it. It was a slow song, and Lou was just sort of just being, he was just taking the whole thing and somewhere else, and he was kind of destroying the song, but it didn't sound bad. It sounded kind of cool in a way. But it was not the song that was written. And Jay just sort of saunters over to Lou and says something, if at all, and kind of gives Lou a little push. And it was the first real physical sort of connection, like interaction, and it's amazing to watch. You'll see it. I mean, and Lou just kind of, Lou is taken by such surprise from this touch that he just goes like, whoa, like this. And then it starts becoming a shoving back and forth thing. And while they're doing it, their guitars are like cranked through the amp. So all you hear is like the guitars smashing together. And to me, it was like, it sounded so good.
We were friends with all of the band, you know what I mean? It wasn't like just Jay. It was, when we first became friendly with them, it was like Jay, Lou and Murph all together, friends. And then when they fell out, I remember the first time when they were playing at the Powerhouse, and like Lou, we saw Lou, and there was all beaming smiles, and then Jay walked over, and like, because Jay and Lou weren't talking, then Lou hung back, and that's when I realized there was some weird shit. But then they broke up soon after that. But when we first knew them, it didn't seem like the tension seemed more like brothers tension. Do you know what I mean? It was that kind of style. It was. I remember they were fighting over the record when we gave it to them.
It's like when you work everything out, it's like it loses all its mystery and ambiguity. So maybe bands are just meant to break up after a while. But I don't know, they just had this really, it just seemed like this really perfect sort of chemistry, non-chemistry chemistry to them.
Lou was just so inspirational to so many people, at that time period. I think people always regarded Jay and what he was doing with Dinosaur as something that was great, but in a way, Lou continued in his own way and created this whole kind of amazing catalog of music, that was his, at the same time in conjunction with whatever Jay was doing. And they were completely separate. They weren't they were completely different, let's put it that way. So seeing them play again, that first time I saw them play, the reunion, I was very sort of interested to see how it would be, just because of that history that had gone by. And in a way, they were better than they ever were. It's like, because none of them really sort of slept while they were broken up. It wasn't like that at all. So, I mean, just that, hearing that kind of Rickenbacker bass, again with those songs was just like startling. And then Jay's lead guitar playing was completely sort of contemporized in a way. It was classic, but at the same time he was like throwing in all these like kind of new flourishes that only he could do, and so it was kind of awesome. And then seeing Murph, just sort of back in action, because Murph was like always a mystery. I see Murph through the years here, once in a while, and then he would disappear, and you would hear stories about Murph being lost in the wilderness somewhere. And you get worried about him, but you just you just didn't know what to do. And then he would show up again, and then at some gig or something, and then so it was fantastic.
It was just a rush, don't know. It's just hard to explain. It was just like I felt like I don't know how to describe it, but I felt like I was like, I don't know, but you feel like just because I think with some friends of them, it was just like you kind of feel like sort of proud when when they're doing really well. You know what I mean? It's like great, they've done it. You know, any kind of fears that it would be, you know,